These are 7 Japanese practices that researchers have found can reduce mortality by up to 50%, boost immune function by 53%, and add years to your life, not through extreme measures, but through gentle daily rituals anyone can adopt. The Danish twin study established that 80% of our longevity comes from lifestyle choices, not genetics, and Japan's transformation from having the shortest G7 life expectancy in the 1960s to the longest today shows us exactly which practices work. The practice with the strongest scientific evidence comes first. Ikigai, your reason for being. Tohoku University researchers spent 7 years tracking 43,391 Japanese adults and discovered something extraordinary in 2008 when they published their findings showing that people without Ikigai faced 50% higher mortality rates. 50%, not 5 or 15, which makes this one of the most dramatic longevity findings ever documented. 1,000 years of history lies behind this word, stretching back to Japan's Heian period, where Iki, meaning life, joined with Gai, meaning worth or value. Western interpretations miss the point entirely, because Ikigai has almost nothing to do with careers or money. And when 2,000 Japanese people answered a survey in 2010, just 31% named work as their Ikigai. Ken Mogi, the neuroscientist from Nippon Medical School, breaks authentic Ikigai into 5 pillars, starting small, releasing yourself, harmony and sustainability, the joy of little things, and being in the here and now. Morning coffee can be your Ikigai, or tending a small garden, or that evening walk you never miss. That famous Venn diagram, with 4 overlapping circles about passion, mission, profession, and vocation, came from British entrepreneur Mark Wynne in 2014, who spent just 45 minutes creating it and openly admits his diagram does not reflect original Japanese thinking at all. The Osaki study revealed that any consistent sense of purpose, no matter how small, cuts cardiovascular disease mortality by 60% and external cause mortality by 90%, though cancer mortality showed no significant association. Consider right now what small, consistent joy gives your days their meaning, not your career goals or life mission, but that simple pleasure that makes tomorrow worth seeing. Shinrin-yoku, the forest medicine. Japan's stress crisis peaked in 1982 when 54% of the population reported feeling overwhelmed, and deaths from overwork, called karoshi, kept climbing higher. Tomohide Akiyama, Director General of Japan's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, responded with something radical for a public health intervention, prescribing time in forests, what he called Shinrin-yoku. Decades of research from Dr. Ching Li at Nippon Medical School show exactly what forest immersion does to our bodies, starting with his landmark 2005 study in Nagano, where 12 healthy men spent 3 days among the trees. Natural killer cell activity jumped 53.2%, NK cell numbers increased 50%, and anti-cancer proteins rose 48%. And here's what amazed researchers most. These effects persisted more than 30 days after that single forest trip. Trees release phytoncides, antimicrobial compounds that work like medicine when we breathe them in, especially from conifers like hinoki cypress and Japanese cedar. A meta-analysis from 2024 confirmed that phytoncides create measurable boosts to immune function, strengthening our cellular defenses in ways we're only beginning to understand. Cortisol drops 12.4% from single forest bathing sessions. Systolic blood pressure falls by up to 28% in certain populations, and heart rate variability improves by 12%. Depression and anxiety show what researchers classify as large improvements, scoring greater than 0.80 on standardized measurement scales. 62 forest therapy bases now operate across Japan, all certified by the Forest Therapy Society, while South Korea poured $140 million into their National Forest Healing Center, and the UK's Woodland Trust pushes for doctors to prescribe forest bathing. The Association of Nature and Forest Therapy has trained more than 800 guides across 48 countries since 2012, spreading this practice globally. Dr. Lee captures it perfectly when he says, "A 2-hour forest bathe will help you to unplug from technology and slow down, because some people study medicine, some people study forest, but I study forest medicine." Most studies involve just 12 to 20 participants, which limits the research. Yet the consistency across multiple studies and countries points to something our bodies have always known: that we're built to heal in nature's presence. Hara Hachi Bu. The 80% rule. Confucius taught this principle 2,500 years ago. Stop eating when you're 80% full. And Japanese philosopher Kaibara Ekikin documented the practice in his 1713 work, Yojokun, living to 83 himself when most people died before 50. Since 1976, the Okinawa Centenarian Study has tracked the world's longest-lived population, with researchers Makoto Suzuki, Bradley Wilcox, and Craig Wilcox examining over 1,000 people who've passed their 100th birthday. Traditional Okinawans ate just 1,800 to 1,900 calories daily, 11% below recommended intake. Yet their islands produced 40 to 68 centenarians per 100,000 people, while industrialized countries managed only 10 to 20. Cardiovascular disease hit these elders at 1/5 the American rate, breast and prostate cancers at 1/5 as well, all while maintaining BMIs between 18 and 22, compared to the average American over 60, carrying a BMI of 26 to 27. Sweet potatoes made up 69% of their traditional diet, with fat accounting for just 6% of calories, a pattern that seems impossible by modern standards. Okinawan elders speak Hara Hachi Bu aloud before meals, creating both blessing and reminder in those 3 words. Dan Buettner describes the gap this creates: a significant calorie gap between when an American says, "I'm full," and an Okinawan says, "I'm no longer hungry." This conscious restriction triggers autophagy, the cellular cleaning process that removes damaged components, and research confirms that dietary restriction extends lifespan only in organisms where this cellular recycling works properly. Eating less helps our bodies maintain themselves better, a paradox that runs counter to everything modern culture tells us. Modern Okinawa paints a darker picture, though, because by 2000, the island had fallen from 1st to 26th among Japan's 47 prefectures for male longevity. Western foods pushed fat intake from 6% to 27% of calories, and younger Okinawans now carry Japan's highest obesity rates, proving these practices require active maintenance. Conscious moderation. That simple act of stopping before fullness might be one of the easiest yet most powerful longevity practices available. And you don't need to live on sweet potatoes to benefit from it. Radio Taiso, the century-old morning ritual. Every morning at 6:30 a.m., millions across Japan move together in synchronized exercise, practicing Radio Taiso, which first aired November 1st, 1928, to celebrate Emperor Hirohito's enthronement. Life expectancy stood at just 42 to 43 years when the Postal Life Insurance Bureau created these exercises, with tuberculosis killing thousands, and director Inokuma Teiji had just returned from observing America's Metropolitan Life Insurance radio exercise program. 13 rhythmic movements set to piano music, lasting 3 minutes total, became Japan's answer to public health crisis. Recognition reaches 96.9% among Japanese citizens today, though only 11.7% practice weekly, and summer programs for children remain so culturally important that McDonald's Japan created burger-shaped attendance cards until 2020. The annual 10 million people Radio Taiso Festival has run continuously since 1962, making it one of Japan's longest-running mass participation events. American occupation forces banned the exercises after World War II for being too militaristic, but they returned August 23, 1945, underwent restructuring in 1946, and came back in modern form when NHK went public in 1951. Tokyo Metropolitan Institute for Geriatrics ran a randomized controlled trial in 2024, following 226 older adults with pre-frailty through 12 weeks of Radio Taiso. Participants showed better agility, improved dynamic balance, and enhanced aerobic endurance, with 94.1% maintaining daily practice and only 0.01% reporting even mild discomfort, proving the safety of unsupervised practice. Mental health scores didn't improve in that particular study, which surprised researchers, but physical benefits combined with morning ritual create a foundation that shapes the entire day. 3 minutes of gentle movement proves more sustainable than ambitious exercise plans that people abandon. Ofuro and Onsen, the Healing Waters Buddhist temple bathing halls, introduced Japan to ritual bathing during the Nara period, more than 1,300 years ago, beginning as spiritual purification that evolved into daily practice. Between 25,000 and 27,000 hot spring sources bubble up across Japan today, and the health research surrounding them keeps expanding. Osaka University tracked 30,076 people for 20 years in their 2020 study, finding that daily hot bathers enjoyed 28% lower cardiovascular disease risk and 26% lower stroke risk. Chiba University followed 14,000 elderly participants for 3 years and discovered daily bathers needed nursing care 30% less often than twice-weekly bathers. Dramatic differences from such a simple practice. Ofuro means deep home baths, heated between 40 and 45 degrees Celsius, while onsen refers to natural hot springs containing specific minerals, but both involve full-body immersion. That's 70 to 80% of Japanese practice several times weekly. Just 10% rely on showers alone, compared to roughly 90% in Western countries, a complete reversal of bathing habits. Our body's thermoregulation system explains the mechanism because bathing 1 to 2 hours before sleep raises core temperature, then lets it fall, enhancing heat dissipation and preparing us for deeper rest. The J-Ship study connected habitual bathing 5 or more times weekly with lower arterial stiffness markers, suggesting cardiovascular benefits accumulate over time. Approximately 19,000 Japanese die annually while bathing, though, mostly elderly people during winter months, when cold dressing rooms create dangerous blood pressure swings. Keeping rooms warm and limiting bath time prevents most accidents, but the risk remains real enough that Japan considers it a public health concern. Most people experience only benefits, though, and the Japanese phrase "Hadaka no Tsukiai," meaning naked communion, captures how public bathing strips away social barriers, along with clothing, creating genuine human connection in warm water. Osuji, the mindfulness of cleaning. Japan's year-end deep cleaning ritual stretches back 1,200 years to the Heian period, when susuharai, or soot sweeping, appeared in the Engishiki law book of 927 CU. December 13th became Soot Sweeping Day during the Edo period, welcoming Toshigami-sama, the deity who brings fortune to clean homes, though modern science reveals benefits that go beyond spiritual belief. Women who perceived their homes as cluttered showed unhealthy cortisol patterns, according to UCLA's Center on Everyday Lives of Families, with stress levels jumping 30% compared to organized spaces. Princeton Neuroscience Institute documented that disorganized environments cut focus by up to 20% while increasing cognitive load, making our brains work harder just to function normally. Japanese students spend 15 to 30 minutes after lunch cleaning their schools, not as punishment, but as moral education. And author Yutaka Okihara explained the philosophy. This routine contains several moral messages that no work, not even dirty work of cleaning, is too low for a student. Marie Kondo transformed these principles into a global phenomenon when her book hit the New York Times bestseller list in 2014. Her Netflix series triggered worldwide decluttering in 2019, and Time magazine named her one of 2015's 100 most influential people. Her method pulls directly from Shinto, beliefs about kami, the spirits present in objects, making tidying a spiritual practice. People describing cluttered homes faced 77% higher likelihood of anxiety and depression symptoms, according to the Journal of Environmental Psychology, while Florida State University found extremely cluttered homes correlate with 77% higher obesity risk. 10 minutes of daily mindfulness, which cleaning naturally provides, boosts well-being, fights depression, and improves sleep quality, according to a 2024 University of Southampton study, with benefits persisting beyond 30 days. Creating order becomes meditation, caring for space becomes mindfulness, and the clarity that emerges when our environment reflects inner calm becomes its own reward. Kaizen, the power of 1%. Better Buddhist texts brought the word Kaizen, meaning change for better, to Japan during the Nara period. But W. Edwards Deming gave it modern meaning when he arrived in 1946 to rebuild Japanese industry after the war. Hundreds of engineers learned statistical quality control from Deming, whose contributions earned him the Second Order Medal of the Sacred Treasure from the Emperor in 1960. Taiichi Ono at Toyota took these principles and built the Toyota production system starting in 1945, creating the manufacturing philosophy that would transform global industry. NBC's 1980 documentary, If Japan Can, Why Can't We?, introduced millions of Americans to these methods, and Ford hired Deming the next year after losing $3 billion, creating a turnaround that became business legend. Masaki Imai spread the philosophy worldwide with his 1986 book, Kaizen, The Key to Japan's Competitive Success, which appeared in over 12 languages. Factories aren't the only place Kaizen works, because psychologist Robert Maurer applied it to human psychology in One Small Step Can Change Your Life. And researchers at Universidad de las Americas Puebla discovered that personal Kaizen creates harmony between mind and body, similar to Buddhist practices. Plan, do, check, act. The core methodology focuses on tiny, incremental improvements, just 1% daily, without overwhelming transformations or dramatic overhauls. Small, consistent steps forward compound into major change. And a 2013 study in the International Journal of Quality and Service Sciences confirmed that personal Kaizen improves both physical and psychological quality of life. The power comes from consistency, not size, which explains why small changes succeed where grand resolutions fail. The larger picture: women in Japan now live 87.13 years on average. Men reach 81.09 years, placing them among the world's longest-lived populations. Low obesity rates, minimal red meat, high fish consumption, abundant plant foods and soybeans, regular green tea, and salt intake that dropped from 14.5 grams in 1973 to 9.5 grams in 2017, all contribute to this longevity. The Japan Public Health Center study followed 81,720 people for more than 1 million person-years, finding their traditional dietary pattern cut all-cause mortality by 18%, cardiovascular disease mortality by 28%, and cerebrovascular disease mortality by 37%. Bradley Wilcox from the Okinawa Centenarian Study sees the bigger picture. If we can find out the mechanisms of aging, why and how we age, and then help people in society live healthier, longer lives, that's going to be one of the greatest discoveries in the history of medicine. Dan Buettner makes the stakes clear. If Americans lived more like the Okinawans, 80% of the nation's coronary care units, 1/3 of the cancer wards, and a lot of the nursing homes would be shut down. Integration and practice perfection isn't the goal here, and dramatic life changes aren't necessary either, because these practices ask for something gentler, consistent attention to daily living. Find your Ikigai first, that small joy that makes your days worthwhile. Then walk among trees and breathe deeply, letting phytoncides work at the cellular level. Try Hara Hachi Bu at one meal, stopping before fullness arrives, honoring what your body actually needs instead of what habit demands. 3 minutes of morning movement creates momentum for the entire day, whether it's Radio Taiso or your own gentle routine. Evening baths prepare your body for restorative sleep through simple heat and cooling cycles, while 10 minutes spent creating order in one corner of your home becomes moving meditation. Kaizen asks for just 1% improvement today, knowing that tiny changes build into transformation. These practices work through their gentleness, their sustainability, their seamless integration into ordinary life, which explains how Japan achieved the world's highest healthy life expectancy without harsh discipline or perfect genetics. Anyone willing to bring mindful attention to ordinary moments can access these same benefits. Moving to Japan isn't necessary. Abandoning your current life isn't required, because all you need is one practice, one small beginning, and the willingness to let ancient wisdom validated by modern science slowly reshape your days. The forest air you breathe, the warm water that surrounds you, the purpose that pulls you forward, and the small improvements you make each day contain everything you need for a longer, healthier life, not hidden in expensive supplements or extreme protocols. Start today with just one practice, one breath, one step, one moment of mindful attention. Be